difficulties, I request Shri Prabhat Pankaj to give us his lecture. We are eagerly looking forward to what he has to say to help us in our endeavor to educate ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So first of all, I would like to express my gratitude and thanks to Jigyasa Forum. And this is a wonderful opportunity for me and my friend Anand, who has joined me this morning. Two of us actually do a little bit of work in happiness. And it will be our pleasure to share our experiences with you. I would also like to take this occasion to thank Professor Ashok Bapna and Rajendra Bhanawatji. They are the mentor for our institute. They are also in our academic board, and they under their guidance, we are doing quite a lot of bit of work here. So perhaps they thought that this is a good topic that we can share our experiences and our learnings with you. I would also like to introduce a little bit our friend Anand, R. Anand, who has joined me today this morning. R. Anand, he is currently the senior advisor to HCL Technology. He is one among the top HR consultant in the country today, and he is an happiness expert. It's actually a compatibility between me and Professor Anand on this particular subject, because there are two distinct dimensions of happiness that has come to surface in the research field. One is looking at it through the economics perspective, how happiness can be used as a public policy. And second, from the individual psychology perspective, which talks about the mental health, well-being and other things. Anand is an expert in psychology, a clinical psychologist, and he has also brought about a book on happiness at workplace. So he is an expert in individual happiness. I'm looking at happiness from the aggregate, the policy point of view. So we thought that these are the two legs on which the happiness should move. So today's talk is going to be a combination of what I'm going to present to you, the individual approach to happiness as well as the aggregate approach to happiness. So we are trying to present you, some of the basic findings of what we have learned from happiness. So with this introduction, let me just share my PPT. The arrangement of the talk would be like this, that I'll be talking about 30 minutes. And then I will hand it over to Anandji to take it forward and talk about some 10-15 minutes. And we'll take altogether 40-45 minutes to make our presentation. And after that, we would like to interact more with you, your views, your experiences, your questions. We can't ensure all the questions will be answered because we are among one of the most elitist group of intellectuals in our country. You all have your own experiences with you, and we have a lot to learn from you. But we'll try to, address those queries and seek your suggestions further. What else can be done in this area? And do you really think that this is a subject that we should pursue further? So what we are going to focus is on the lessons from the happiness research and practice. There are many nuances of happiness, and it is viewed in a variety of ways. But what we have picked up today is to talk strictly from the research point of view. We do talk about happiness in many ways, but this is one way to talk about happiness. So for this particular forum, we have decided to talk from the research angle. So we are going to quote some of the fantastic work that has been done in happiness, and we try to link it to the subject in such a way that you understand, get a grasp of what is happening in happiness research. We'll also put a little bit of emphasis on practice of happiness. So how the countries at the aggregate level or the policy level, happiness is being pursued, and what is happening to the happiness in individuals' life as far as its practice is concerned. So we are going to focus on research as well as on practice. The best way to begin with is to begin from the beginning, I believe, and it can't be better than to begin with Richard Davidson's work. So, it's a very famous work that he has done on mind mapping, and he talked about neuroplasticity. So, probably Anand is going to be the right person to talk about neuroplasticity and mind mapping. But what he started with is very intriguing. said that our brain is such that it has been over time been shaped by different forces around us. And we do not even notice those forces, how our brains are being shaped by these forces. And then he said that, the forces which is shaping our brains, do we have awareness about it? Do we know which forces are shaping our brains? And he said that we have little knowledge about the forces which are shaping our brain, and that our brain is constantly being shaped. So that's the problem he poses in front of us. Uh, uh, can I request Ranjanji to, yeah, sorry. So he actually, what he did was that he texted 3 questions to people. He asked them the first questions like, what are you doing right now? So they asked the people, what are you doing right now? Can you tell us what are you doing right now? Are you aware about what you are doing right now? So that's the question he asked. Very interesting question. And then he asked the second question. Where is your mind at this moment? Is your mind on the thing that you're doing right now, or your mind is somewhere else? That's the question. So he talked about that. It's very interesting. And then he also asked, how happy are you, in your life? And these 3 questions he analyzed, and he found very staggering result. He said that 47% of people whom he actually sent this questionnaire to answer, they were actually lost in wilderness, and they were not aware about what they were doing right now. So that means their mind was not focused on what they're doing right now. Their mind is somewhere else, they're doing something else. He also gave an example that quite often it happens with you, it happens with me, it happens with everybody. When you start reading a book, you read one page of the book, then you read the second page of the book, then you read the third page of the book. And by the time you read the third page of the book, you forgot completely what you have read in the first page and second page of the book. You actually, and that's what he called it, neuroplasticity, how mind is being shaped by certain factors, which is actually causing loss of well-being. And some of the factors he actually indicated is very, very important for us to understand. He said that the first factor which actually causes the failure of well-being is distractibility. Distractibility, he talked about the wandering mind. And his theory is that the wandering mind is not a happy mind. And here lies the clues to happiness, the individual happiness. We'll talk about it in a while. The second, he talked about the attention deficit. He said people who have, severe attention deficit, and people who have attention deficit will be less likely to be happy. That's what he indicated. That's a loss of well-being we generally get. The third he talked about was a moderate to high level of loneliness. A staggering result. You see, what he presented was that 76% of people whom he actually interviewed were found to be moderately or high level of suffering from high level of loneliness. And he said that the loneliness is an early indicator of mortality. And then say that it's a stronger predictor even in comparison to obesity. So I mean, that's the significance he attaches to the loss of well-being due to loneliness. The next he talked about is the negative self-talk. And depression. He said that depression is on the rise, and it actually gets inflated by how we actually introspect and what kind of narrative we make for ourselves. So he said the self-talk. What is that self-talk narrative that you generate for yourself? And that is the indicator of how quickly or how well you're going to navigate out of depression. So that's very important point that he raised. Then he talked about suicide rates. He said that, look at the women's suicide rate has increased by almost more than 30%. And the surprising thing is that the suicide rate among the teen is also rising. So that's very, very disturbing, actually. It's a complete loss of well-being. And the fourth point is very, very intriguing, and it's very important for all of us to consider. He said that a pervasive loss of purpose and meaning in life. And that is very, very important that we have to, it's an early predictor, and he took it as an early predictor of death, and you can see the finding. He said that the people in their 60s with low purpose in life are over 2 times as likely to die within 5 years as those with high levels. If you have a high level of purpose in life and you have a low level of purpose in life, it makes a lot of difference on mortality. So these are all the things that he talked about. And then he went on to explain how we can nudge our brain, how we can nudge our behavior, how we can nudge people in order to cope with these failures of well-being and increase happiness in life. So we are going to come back to that, the solution part, but I'll take you through another study, which has been one of the celebrated study in happiness. Is called the study of adult development, and it was done by the Harvard University professors. So this is the longest, the largest, longest longitudinal study available with us. This study actually expands for 70 years, almost 70 years. And there are 4 generations of researchers who have gone into doing this study. And they have tracked the life of Harvard alumni, 268 lives, right from 19 years age to till their death. They have tracked their life in a variety of ways, and interventions and questionnaires and interviews. And this study is a wonderful study that we have to understand life. So, what these lives, which has been tracked by the researchers, 4th-generation researchers, can tell us. So there are 3 aspects I have taken. It's a huge study. There's a lot of things that is incorporated in the study, but I have picked up only 3 for the relevance of the talk today. So first is, how important is our childhood in predicting how we age? So when we age, when we grow old, is the childhood matters for that? How we grow old, does it related to how we spent our childhood? That's the one question that this study actually focuses. Second, is the die cast in the midlife, or what is the significance of midlife for how we age? So when you reach the age of 70, 80, does it also decided how you're going to live at 70 and 80 in the midlife or in the early childhood? No, that's a very interesting question that all of us would be interested in knowing how it actually relates. And the third, who retires and who enjoys it and why? After retirement, who are the people who enjoys it most, and who are the people who actually gets retired and say that no, they're done. So I'm presenting one finding from this study. They're saying childhood factors do not actually predict much about life at 70 and 80. So it's a childhood. You may have a different childhood, but it is not going to be a predictor of how you're going to live life at 70 and 80. So on the one hand, you can see warmth of childhood temperament, parental social class, ancestral longevity. So these are the factors that has been tracked in this study, and they have actually tried and relate it with the physical health, length of active life, life satisfaction, and mental health. So what was found is that the warmth in the childhood, if you get a lot of warmth in the childhood, it will have a big positive impact on your mental health. It will have a positive impact, but not that big on the physical health. And your ancestral longevity also actually explains a little bit about your length of active life. Rest of the factors actually do not explain how you live at 70 and 80, how you led your life in childhood. So childhood is not a very strong predictor of how you're going to live life at 70 and 80. So where is the clue to the old life, or life of the aged? The clue lies in the midlife. Actually, the midlife, which starts from 40s and your 50s, that is where it makes a lot of difference how you're going to live in 70 and 80. So this is what the study says. So they have taken 4 factors: so the smoking, alcohol abuse, exercise, stable marriage. And then they related it to the 4 factors of physical health, length of active life, life satisfaction, and mental health. And you can see smoking and alcohol abuse, they actually will reduce your physical health, length of active life, life satisfaction, as well as mental health. Smoking, of course, do have a neutral impact on the life satisfaction that you can have at 70 and 80, but rest of the factors will have actually negative impact. But there is a double positive impact of exercise and the stable marriage. That's what they are saying. So, you have a good physical health, length of active life, life satisfaction, and mental health. Exercise and the life satisfaction may not be that correlated, but other things are very highly correlated. So the positive aspect of how you lead your life, how you organize your life in 40s and 50s are going to be the predictor of how you're going to live your life in 70s and 80s. That's what the study says. On the retirements, who retires and who enjoys and why? So there are a couple of points that I would like to put forward. 5% retired prior to age 60, most due to ill health. That's what he observed, the study observed. 50% still worked full time at age 65. By the age 75, only 1 out of 12 men had not retired. So you can look at the data. And then the last one, it says the men who liked working the most at the age 60 liked retirement the most at age 75. So the study clearly indicates that how you organize your life at 40s and 50s, and by the time you become 60, if you are still active, you're able to make yourself active, engaged in pursuit and work, you're going to enjoy your life more at the age of 70 and 80. So that's what the study actually point out. And very clearly, the study says that there is a positive correlations between the education and longevity, how learning and education is actually related to longevity. And this study actually testifies that. It says that those who are actually college men, 237 samples, you can see the red line, it can reach up to 75. People who have actually reached 70, 75 years of age of longevity are the one who were the college men. So those who have actually adopted education and the constant learning as the mode of life, their longevity have been found to be better. What are the 4 ingredients of happy retirement? So this is a summary of this work I would like to present in front of you. 1, replace workmates with other social networks. So when you lose out your workmates, you need to create an alternative circle of social networks. That is the clue to happy life, a happy retirement life. Second, discover how you play. So play plays a very important role in how you're going to lead your life happily after retirement. And engage in creative endeavors. The more creative you become, the better you feel. And learn new things. So learning is the hallmark of life, and learning and longevity actually are closely related to this. So these are the 4 findings that this particular study tells us. Now on the international research front, we do have this World Happiness Report that comes every year. So this is the report of 2020, which is available on the net. You can have a look at that. And if you look at the ranking of the countries that has been made on the basis of this happiness research, Finland tops the rank, and in the top 20, India does not figure anywhere. And the happiness explained by this report, there are factors like they have taken GDP per capita, social support, health, life expectancy, freedom to make the life choices, generosity, and perception of corruption. So these are the factors which they have considered in ranking the country on the basis of happiness. So we must be wondering where India lies in this report. The Sri Lanka is at 130, India is at 144, and the last is Afghanistan. So you can make the difference between the countries, and you can see how this is happening. But the important thing to note in this report is that the kind of 6 factors that it actually counts on, there are 4 factors that explains countries' happiness. They are actually the social environment they are talking about. It's not the monetary environment they are talking about. So out of 6, 4 are social environment. So they are saying, someone to count on. Do you have someone to count on? Having the sense of freedom, to make life decisions, generosity, trust. You see, these are all the social capital they're talking about. So the happiness largely depends on social capital. Professor Jeffrey Sachs is right when he said, time and again we see the reasons for well-being include good social support networks, social trust, honest governments, safe environment, and healthy lives. So these are the social dimensions of life that we create for ourselves and the country that actually are the indicators of happiness. But there is one more aspect this report actually highlights. It talks about the inequality. And they're saying a good social environment is there, but inequality actually is a very big ingredient of good social environment. And Richard Laird is one of the very prominent researcher in happiness. He says that people actually would like to live in a society without extreme disparity in the quality of life. So we don't feel good living in the society which has got extreme disparity. So inequality actually plays a very important role. So what are the 3 lessons that we have learned from happiness research? The first, it says that wealth is not enough for happiness. The money, the incessant our urge to crave for money, it doesn't lead to a better happy life. That's the first lesson that we learned. Second is happiness is measurable. and it is accessible. So, you know, it has been made possible by researchers. They have adopted a lot of methodology. I'm not going into that, the methodology of measuring happiness, but if the questions is asked, then we'll talk about that as well. Third, happiness can be promoted via public policy. That's what he said. So one of the, you know, way to look at is what Amartya Sen has written. A whole chapter he has devoted in the idea of justice. He talked about capability approach to happiness in idea of justice. What he said is that with a similar circumstances to two people, the capability to be happy will differ. So some people will be much happier with the given circumstance. With the same circumstance, the other set of people may not be very happy. So if there is something called capability to be happy, there is also the possibility that this capability can be enhanced. And that's the reason why, you know, the focusing on happiness research, happiness training becomes important, because people can be made to be happy. And research has actually proved that up to 25% happiness can be added through training. So when we look at this particular, study by John Halliwell, the Easterlin's work, there's a lot of literature that has gone into it. So there is a 3-wave of survey they have taken, and they have related it to the happiness in American economy. And it found that Easterlin has pointed out that the American per capita GDP has increased by a factor of 2 over a period of 40-50 years, but the average happiness has not actually increased. In one of the survey, long-term survey, it has been found that it has actually decreased. So people have started questioning the preamble of the Constitution of America. And they're asking the question, what happened to the pursuit of happiness? Because the preamble of US Constitution says that we are in the pursuit of happiness. So people started asking this question, what happened to the pursuit of happiness? And there's a lot of debate that is going on, and people started focusing on that. When this is a scatter diagram we created, income and happiness cross country, you can see the trend very well that, the countries are moving up and then going to the right-hand side and then flattening out. So this means that the relationship between income and the happiness is something like, inverted U-shaped curve, where there is going to be a peak. Peak means that the income is going to contribute to happiness up to a particular level, but beyond that income level, happiness is not contributed by income. It's contributed by something else. And this is where lies the clue to happiness. So what are those factors which actually contributes, which goes beyond happiness? So one of the, a very celebrated quote, if I don't do, I will not be doing the justice, is by Robert Kennedy. So he was actually running the race for American presidency in 1968, and he made this speech at University of Kansas. And he said about GDP, he said, it measures neither our wit nor our courage, neither our wisdom nor our learning, neither our compassion nor our devotion to the country. It measures almost everything, in short, except that which makes life worthwhile. And that's why he said that GDP is a hopeless measure. And then later on, we found that Tim Jackson, he proposes degrowth theory. And he said that if the growth slows down, the country actually does better. So it's not about growth race. It's about how you ensure the quality of life. And Joel Gardner, his famous dissertation on rise and fall of GDP. So, a lot of questions have been raised and people are talking about it. We have a country in the neighborhood, Bhutan, and the Bhutan talks about gross national happiness rather than gross national product. And their gross national happiness is based on 9 dimensions of happiness. And look at those 9 dimensions: psychological well-being, health, time use, education, cultural diversity and resilience, good governance, community vitality, ecological diversity and resilience, living standard. So you can see income-based measure is just one component in the 9 dimensions. And therefore, they have taken life as holistic way of looking at life. So life actually is not just about money. Life is about many other things which the money cannot actually buy. Of course, there are many things that the money can buy to make you happy, but there are many happy things that the money cannot buy. So we have to consider that. This is one of the holistic indicators available on this earth. They are the leader in talking about happiness. It's also called the kingdom of happiness. So if you get more time, we'll talk about it. This is a GNH framework that they use. This GNH framework is that they look at people from the sufficiency domains. And then statistically, they have worked out the data based on the data they have collected on 9 domains, on several factors, 33 factors, 9 domains. They have divided a cutoff. So they have a cutoff, and if you have number of a sufficiency more than that cutoff, you are considered as happy, and if you have a less than the cutoff, you're considered not happy. For example, Chimi and Sange has got 7 dimensions, happier dimensions, and they're lacking only in 2 dimensions. So they are considered as happy people. But Thingle, Dorji, Jampel, Tashi, Iring, they are not considered happy because they have not sufficient domains of happiness above the cutoff. Uh, uh, Meenakshi ji,
Yes.
Meenakshi ji, can you just
Yes.
mute yourself? Can you please mute yourself? Yeah, sure. Thank you. So talking about it a little more, the ADB's framework. So ADB tried to actually create an index. So it's called the Inclusive Green Growth Index. They call it inclusive green, and they try to see how sustainability is actually related to happiness. And they found a perfect fit between the sustainability and GGI index. And therefore, any country which is actually working more intensively on SDGs are the one which is going to progress more on happiness front. So this is just one view. A lot of country initiatives have been taken. We have the complete OECD project on the measuring of the progress of society. They talk about the alternative way of looking at the progress. Countries initiative, Bhutan, we have already seen, Brazil, Thailand, UK, Australia, France, UAE. These are the countries which have actually made a lot of headway in terms of measuring the well-being in variety of ways, including happiness. The French President Sarkozy, he constituted a commission and he commissioned 3 Nobel laureate, Joseph Stiglitz, Amartya Sen, and Jean Paul Fitoussi, and they have come out with a report on measuring the economic performance and the social progress, and they talked about the alternative way, drifting away from the GDP-based measure. So, these are some of the development that has happened. If you go to Dubai city, you will see this kind of board, happiness street, and they use something called the happiness meter. The happiness meter is a unique city on this earth, which actually combines happiness and technology together, and to make it a smart city or a happy city of the future. And they use the real-time sentiment analysis of the people to understand how happy they are with different services, including the government services. There are neurological evidences of happiness, and that's the reason why the happiness research is picking up so fast. So one of the neurological research was that MRI scan of a lot of people whom the happy baby face was shown and the defaced baby face was shown. And the longer the duration of the picture which was shown, the MRI scan actually appeared on one side of the brain consistently, and the patch actually increased over the size of the patch actually increased as the duration of the picture shown increased. So this gives us some kind of indicator that there is neurological evidence that happiness gets recorded at some place in our brain. There are many happy chemicals that we talk about, like serotonin is a happy chemical that gets secreted in our body. Oxytocin is another chemical, and the dopamine is another chemical. So neurological evidence is also shown here. This is how happiness actually looks like in our brain. The molecules, what happens is that the molecules of the protein myosin drag a ball of endorphins along with the active filament into the inner part of the brain, that is parietal cortex, which produces the feelings of happiness. So how these feelings of happiness recorded in our brain? There are neurological evidences for that as well. Therefore, it makes a lot of sense to talk about happiness, and we can see that Yale University's most popular course is happiness. Most popular course ever is happiness. So this is how people are taking it to the practical world. Jeremy Bentham, he talked about calculus of pain and pleasure, 32 circumstances. In other work, it was pointed out that happiness is not entirely a personalized phenomenon. If you think that the happiness is inner and it depends on you, we are perhaps mistaken. The happiness after a certain point of time, it actually depends on factors which is not under our control. And it's very important to understand those factors. We derive it from the society we live in. So therefore, our understanding about what are the sources of happiness we derive from the society is very important. A layered is another very exemplary work he has done. And he said that our wants, once we are above the subsistence level, are largely derived from the society, and they are the major factors affecting the happiness. Halliwell is another scholar who has done a big work. He talked about freedom, religion, trust, and morality as an important factor affecting our happiness. Some more findings, in one of the study, it was said that the Americans consider happiness more to them than money, moral goodness, and even going to the heaven. In another study, 37% of the people on Forbes list of wealthiest Americans are found less happy than the average Americans. So these are some of the startling, evidences of research work. And then there is happiness increase experiments. And this was published in a peer-reviewed journal, have empirically demonstrated that individuals can be trained to be 25% happier through various training programs from 2 to 10 weeks. So we do have this, evidence. This is one work that two of us, myself and Anandji, published in Times of India, is the latest work that we have published, Need of the Hour. So what is the need of the hour? So when we talk about the need of the hour, we can talk about a couple of things which can be taken as a takeaway from the research and practices of happiness. The first thing that we would like to advocate is mindfulness. There's something called the body scan meditation, which actually helps quite a lot. I'll request Anandji to speak a little more on these 5 presets that I'm going to present just in front of you. So I'm not going to talk much about mindfulness. Anandji is going to talk about mindfulness more and about this particular study. Second, we are advocating is called practice stoicism. So there is something called, way of looking at things, how you are developing this habit of responding to a situation rather than reacting to a situation. There's a beautiful quote, God give me the courage to change the things I can, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Here lies the clues to happiness. So Anand is going to explain more on that. The third we are going to advocate is active leisure. How we spend our leisure is very important. This is one of the book that has come to market very recently, some couple of days back. Susskind, A World Without Work. So he's actually looking at how the singularity is going to take place, how the AI is going to take over the world of work. And if we have less work and more leisure, do we really know how to use leisure for happiness? And there is a study in happiness which says that the time use pattern of the millionaires are very different. They are actually into more active leisure. So it's not about just leisure time that you have for happiness. It's about how you use your leisure for happiness is more important. So there is a passive leisure, there is active leisure. So if you have plenty of leisure and if it is a passive leisure for you, it's not going to add to happiness. So that's what the research indicates. So Anandji is going to talk more on that. Fourth, we are talking about is dopamine detoxing. Dopamine is a happy chemical, but what it does is that if overdose of dopamine, if you start getting from some sources, we tend to incline to that sources a lot. For example, mobile use. So we have just checked our mobile, we kept it on the table, and then in a flash, we again pick up the mobile, start checking if there is any message for me in the mobile. Though we have just checked the message, we don't know. Well, I'm sure that the message will not come in a flash, but we have this habit. So we cannot live without mobile. That's called the excessive dopamine. So excessive dopamine is the reason for things like sticking to mobile games, computer, music, junk food. These are all results of excessive dose of dopamine that you get from a particular behavior. Therefore, what we need is a dopamine detoxing. So how do we do dopamine detoxing? That's very important. The fifth and the last prescription for happiness would be pro-social. So act for the collective good is called SQ, that is spiritual quotient. Now, a spiritual quotient is not about being religious, religious quotient. Religious quotient and spiritual quotients are different. So just to make you understand this difference, let me just give you an example. So I have a friend doctor, and he says that he is treating patient of diabetes. So he's a doctor treating diabetes. And he's doing a wonderful job. He's a well-celebrated doctor, and he's doing a great job. there is another doctor, and he's also treating patient for diabetes. And he's also an excellent doctor, he's doing good. But the second doctor says that, his aim is not just to treat the patient which comes to him, but he would like to see that his whole locality and his whole city is free from diabetes. That's what the mission he is working for. So the second doctor has a SQ much higher and better than the first doctor. So SQ is about, pursuing the lifetime pursuit, or maybe, finding the purpose of life. So trust, compassion, friends to talk, these are the social capital which actually speaks volume about happiness. So this acronym that we have developed ourselves is called CALL, C-A-L-L. So, just to remember it well, so give yourself a call. A call means adopt a curious approach to life and living. So that's another clue to happiness. So with this talk, I'll just take a minute and talk about what are the initiatives that we have taken at Jaipuria Institute of Management before I hand it over to Anandji to talk. First we have done is that we have actually oriented our campus with 4 different cores of happiness and positive education in our campus. So we have oriented our campus on the happiness, on the base of happiness findings and research. Second, we developed the course called Happiness and Well-being, and we have offered it as an elective 3-credit course to our student. And this course promises to increase happiness in their life after they go through this course. And this course is going very beautifully, and is being received very well. Third, happiness, we are doing constant happiness research and publications, and we share our writings with the rest of the world. We do a lot of workshop training and talks in happiness. We also have a center for sustainability and public policy, under which we take up this happiness research. You can see our campus. This is the core, this is the outermost core of our campus. So what it says is that if you make outer core as green, lush green, a lot of flowers and positivity, it actually opens up the senses of the people who are going to visit your campus, and they are ready to work, they are ready to study, they are ready to deliberate. So, this is the first gateway of happiness or positive education. So if the learner is not opening up their mind, if they're burdened, too much burden, and then enter the campus, it makes a lot of difference in their learning. So this is just to give you an idea how we do. Teaching and learning happiness, we do a lot of happiness is another publications we had. We also worked on something called the Happy School, and this is the article that we have written on Happy School. We also met the Chief Secretary Gupta ji, and he visited our campus once. He delivered a lecture also. He connected us to the Secretary Education, and through them we also got 2 schools in Jaipur to conduct our intervention, happiness intervention, from class 5 to class 8, but we couldn't take it up and take it forward because of the pandemic. So probably, after things get settled, then we'll take it up further. We also worked on happiness at workplace, and we published this as a result of that study. We also have worked on happy city concept. So, taking evidences from the rest of the world, from Europe, from US, from Dubai, from other countries, and then we try to say what a happy city is all about and what are the features of a happy city. So, a lot of Bhutanese officials also visited us, the top officials from Bhutan. So Professor T.S. Paudel, he was a former education minister of Bhutan. He came over to Jaipur, and he delivered a lecture on education for happiness. And he also delivered a lecture on SCM RIPA with our collaboration. Norbu Wangchuk is another education minister from Bhutan. He talked about mindfulness and happiness, and he also gave an interview on Rajasthan Patrika. He was here in Jaipur. Dashokarma Ura, he's the president of the Center for Bhutan Studies, and I worked with him very closely. I lived in Bhutan for about 6-7 years. So he came over here. He's the architect of the measurement part of GNH in Bhutan. So he has the status equivalent to a minister. In our conferences, you can see these are the newspaper, local Rajasthan newspaper coverage of Mr. Wangchuk when he was here. he talked about happiness. This is the coverage of Karma Ura when he was here. This is the local newspaper coverage. And this is HCM Ripa when he visited. You can see our Vanavatji is talking to the Minister of Education, Professor T.S. Powder. So these are some of the things that we have done. So I'm stopping it here without taking much of the time, and I'm handing it over to Anandji to talk a little more on the 5 points that we have elaborated for 10-15 minutes, and then we can open it for question answers.